In 2024, the Big 12 proved itself to be the most exciting conference in all of college football. You saw nail-biting finishes, Heisman-level performances,
and it's time to strike another pose for Travis Hunter.
And teams proving the doubters wrong all season long.
Arizona State, the Big 12 champions.
How do you top a season for the ages? The road to glory begins here. It is the 2025 Big 12 football schedule reveal show, and it starts right now. Welcome to Inside
Hello,
the
beautiful
12's
people, and
reveal of
welcome
Big 12
to the
Conference's
2025 college football schedule reveal.
He is LD McClain, a man who knows a little something about the Big 12. Great to have you.
Glad to be here, Pete. Glad to be going.
Now for today, we are going to look at all these college football teams and see what opponents they will compete against on their upcoming schedule in this fall soon.
I'm ready. I know you're ready.
And everybody is ready, so I'm hoping all of you got your YouTube and stuff ready, and we are going to tell you one team at a time. First one is the Arizona Wildcats football schedule for this upcoming fall.
They begin the season saying aloha. They welcome Hawaii.
And I know they will be doing good in this upcoming fall, so, but just like they did last season. Like, they were new to the B12 conference, but before that, they used to be in the Pac-12 for decades.
A whole lot going on for Arizona.
And
one of the things I wanted to touch on with you, LD, they don't leave home for about a month.
And the blue is away, and red is home game.
Because as a team, as you're
and the school colors is red and blue, just like
SEPTA. If you can sleep in
SEPTA.
your own bed the night of the game, that's always going to be an advantage. So they've got an opportunity to get off with the jump with 3 possible wins. And if you can build that momentum before you get to 9-13, obviously Kansas State, where the meat and potatoes of their schedule starts to go, you're looking at head coach Brett Brennan and saying, hey, we've got an opportunity to get a lot of momentum early in the year and see if you can keep it going late in December if you can.
What else jumps out at you when you look at this Wildcats?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. You know, playing Kansas, playing Cincinnati, you know, those are 2 teams that are not typically on their radar. I think that's going to be interesting for them this season. And again, it's all about when you travel. Who are they playing, right? You've got Cincinnati in November, that Friday night game on the road against Arizona State, which is an arch rival. That could be big for these guys.
Did he say first away game?
Arizona's first ever meeting
against Arizona State.
To see these teams re-engage. You mentioned Arizona State and
Arizona State versus Arizona, it's a big rivalry game.
Yeah, I think that's good for college football, right?
Like in the upcoming season, they will have a rivalry game, but you know, some teams do have rivalry games. It's like Arizona versus Arizona State.
Now that you've got these programs,
that is like the biggest rivalry games ever.
I can't wait to see this year. Arizona State.
And this one is Arizona State. As you can see, gold is home games, and maroon is away. These are some teams that we'll face against.
Gritty Texas State team. They beat them on the road last year. They're welcome.
Now, I know the last game they'll take on Arizona Wildcats with a rivalry game. It's always been a big rivalry game ever since.
Baylor comes up. They travel to Waco on September 20th.
And the Big 12 Football Championship game will be held on December 6, 2025 at the AT&T Stadium like usually.
And see, I look at it from a different lens. When you see that SEC team, Mississippi State, you're saying, okay, here we go. This is a juggernaut. Let's keep in mind the Bulldogs only won 2 or 3 games last season. And when the 2 teams played a year ago, they did hold the Bulldogs to 27 total yards rushing in the entire game, and they led 27-3. So that game's a little distorted. However, it's still an SEC opponent. You still have to travel. I still think Arizona State could start the season out 4-0. And when they get to that TCU game, a really solid TCU team under Sonny Dykes, that's where the rubber will start to meet the road, I think, for the Sun Devils as they try to go back and repeat as Big 12 champs.
Cam Scadaboo's gone. You lose him to the NFL.
Yeah.
Sam Levitt returns, and most importantly, head coach Kenny Dillingham returns. And he could have run for governor of the state of Arizona. Probably would have won every place in Tucson, but you get the idea. An extremely popular figure out there in the land of the desert.
Well, Coach Dillingham has got a culture built, right? So now in this era of football, to where you're not building programs for the long term, you're starting to build them season by season. Again, they're going to plug and play, right? This is a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. If they can stay there with Coach Dillingham, look for them to repeat to get back to the Big 12 championship.
And Big 12 nut job fans like me cannot wait to see that November 1st game against Iowa State. That's a rematch that we all cannot wait
so
to see.
That means Arizona State will take on Iowa State as a rematch on November the 1st.
At the Sun Devils. And so, yes, that's going to be very intriguing. The timing of that game is going to be fantastic. You're looking at November is when that game is going to come out. So weather could be at that time a little bit of a factor. So we'll see how tough they are coming that time of year as well.
You will also find out how tough they are early in the season, like we mentioned, when they head to take on Baylor. 2024.
Now is Baylor.
Finish 8-5.
Now Baylor.
Dave Aranda and his team got out to a slow start.
Now the green is for home games. Away is for gold.
To a place where they want to be early in the season.
Yellow is like gold. It's the same color. It doesn't matter. Yellow, gold, same thing.
Concern, only had 2 wins last year. That could be a tough game. But how about SMU, a college football playoff team? Baylor takes to the road. Short trip up 35. And then you see Arizona late in the season, UCF there in the later stages. The back end of Baylor's season could be considered manageable.
Well, if you look at this, 4 of the first 6 games of the season are at home for the Baylor Bears, which is critical because they were awesome. At McLean Stadium a year ago, 5-1 to be exact. They had that 6-game winning streak. So Dave Aranda has his team capable of getting in the rhythm mid-season and then carrying them into the postseason. SMU obviously riding high on the CFP. Yeah, make no mistake about it. They're gearing up for that for that game too, aside from Auburn as well.
And more on that SMU game coming up later, but you have to look at Arizona State as well. 3 of Baylor's first 4 games, you mentioned, you look at it, could be a really tough schedule. Also, a launching point for Baylor, possibly to get into that top 25 early on and stay there as the season unwinds. And they end with in-state rival Houston. Keep an eye on Dave Aranda and the Baylor Bears. They've returned Sawyer Robertson, Bryson Washington, and Josh Cameron. That's a team you got to be ready for.
Well, I think the Big 12 has certainly turned into that conference that's physical, right? Arizona State showed us that. Baylor Bears are built to be physical, right? Coach Aranda makes no mistake about it. They want to be physical in the offensive and defensive lines. And you mentioned some of the skilled players, if they can, and the recruiting coming in, right? They've got the arsenal to certainly compete. Now they just got to go out there and feed off of what they've done a year ago and keep that momentum going.
All right, let's go to the Cougars. We head to Provo.
Now up is BYU Cougars.
11-2. Great season.
Kalani
Sitake is very excited that he gets
now, as you can see, blue is for home games and away is for gray.
September 27th, TCU on the 15th. You look at a schedule like this, LD. You also have a game against Stanford. That's the second game. Big 12 opponents play, or the Big 12 conference plays 7 ACC opponents overall. Stanford early in the season for BYU. About this schedule, what jumps out at you?
Well, I think the key games to me, obviously Colorado, the rematch of the bowl game. You've got the Holy War against Utah. Iowa State. Let's keep an eye on that game. I think that is going to be pivotal, especially at the time of year when they play. That could tilter either team towards certainly making the Big 12. And when you look at TCU, obviously Texas Tech, I don't know what it is about going to Lubbock. But Lubbock at night, Lubbock anytime during the day, weird things tend to happen, and good teams struggle from time to time going out there and playing. Coach McGuire and his guys. Look, I like this team. They're built physical. They were the number 1 overall defense, number 1 defense in scoring. If they can get back to that level, no matter where they play, their game is going to travel. I think the Cougars will certainly be at the top again.
How about the Holy War, October 18th? Last year, it was a 1-point win for BYU. Utah wants revenge. We're going to talk about it later when we get into the Utes. But that is a game that all of Utah has circled on the calendar.
Yeah, you know, looking back at that game, Utah didn't have their best season of the year. They weren't playing their top ball, but they still were in that game. And Make no mistake about it, it was come down to a penalty that kind of changed the tide of the game. But that is going to be one where I think the reloading of Utah and then, of course, BYU coming back with their squad, that is going to be a game of epic proportions for sure.
It's funny, you mentioned the cliche. Throw the records out, but I'm telling you, that is a game, right?
You have to.
You throw the records out. Plenty more to come on our first look at the 2025 Big 12 football schedule. Colorado and Iowa State both had double-digit win season. Can they do it again? We dive into their schedules and more when Inside the 12 returns.
We'll be right back, guys.